to Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. In this podcast, I bring you insights, experiences, and lessons from real estate investing professionals at all stages of their journey, along with industry experts who provide essential services to you to help you to succeed. Our goal is to empower you with the knowledge and strategies needed to build a personalized real estate investing plan that aligns with your unique goals. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. It helps me to continue to share valuable content with you. My name is Debbie Balfour, and I'm a real estate investing professional and a real estate investing success coach. Real estate investing isn't a one size fits all. Your strategy should be unique as you are. Today's guest is someone who's operated in the most high-pressured environments you can imagine, from protecting U.S. national security to navigating startup chaos and real estate deals. Tim Street is a Marine Corps veteran and a former federal air marshal whose career path has taken him from tactical operations to tech startups and now real estate investing. He brings a rare mix of composure under pressure, sharp people instincts, and a talent for through complexity. In this episode, we're going inside the machine, what investors don't know about how agents actually create or kill value. We'll uncover the hidden economics behind the traditional agent model, including how misaligned incentives can quietly eat away at your ROI. Tim's going to share what savvy investors need to watch for and how understanding the mechanics behind value creation can give you a serious edge in the market. Welcome to the show, Tim. I'm so pleased to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey in real estate investing?
Debbie, hey, thank you so much for having me. And is there a way you could send that intro to my kids, because they think I'm a big idiot? So I mean, it's really nice. I'm sitting here I'm sweating right now. I was like, wow, how do I measure up to that?
That's every kid.
My goodness. Well, I'm completely outnumbered in this house. So my wife and I, we have four daughters. I shouldn't call them little girls anymore because they are growing up, but even the dog's a girl. I'm so outnumbered in this house. I'm in trouble. But yeah, it's funny. There's no way I could have predicted how the twists and turns that my life took to get me here. As you touched on, it was just starting as I grew up in Detroit. We didn't have a ton of money, and this college was no way in the question. So that's actually how I ended up in the Marine Corps. And then, from there, it was just a winding road through the Marines, Federal Air Marshals. I ended up some of the best friends I've ever had on this planet. We started startup companies together, and I just had a knack for sales. I was really good at what I like to call is just being able to identify with people in an inch deep and a mile wide sense. And what I mean by that is I can't really be a master of necessarily every topic out there, but I can kind of talk to just about anybody for just about anything, at least to get us through, a couple of cups of coffee or something. I suppose that's kind of been one of the secrets to what I've been successful at is I'm able to take complex topics and normalize them into something that just everyday folks can understand, because I've never been accused of being the smartest man in the room. So what I like to tend to do is take something that's rather complex and, dumb it down for somebody where I can understand it. And then I know if I can understand it, pretty much anybody can understand it. So after the startup companies, I was living in a suitcase. My kids were getting older and older. They needed a dad at home. Teenage girls, they needed their dad at home. And it was just tough for me to be gone so often. So I tried to figure out what I could do to generate some revenue, because kids are freaking expensive. So I couldn't just, get a sleeping bag and hang out at the beach all day. So I started looking at real estate investing. I initially was a partner in an apartment building in Tennessee. That went okay. I didn't love it. I ended up becoming a short-term a vacation rental host. And I have a small portfolio of vacation rentals here in Florida. But it was funny because through the process of finding which properties I wanted to acquire, I would do all the work, all the research. get all the way to the end just to be told, hey, come back when you have a real estate agent. And I'm like, what the heck? So after working with 3 real estate agents who screwed up 3 amazing deals for me, and listen, I have nothing against them. My wife's a real estate agent. I still am a real estate agent. Some of my best friends are real estate agents. So I don't want everybody thinking I'm here trashing them, because I'm not. There's some really great ones out there, and we have a bad reputation, and a lot of that is deserved, but some of it is not. In this case, I will tell you that the real estate agents that I happen to work with were not as good at putting together the big picture of a deal and negotiating with people in a manner that I would. So imagine there I am with my friends in these startup companies, and we're literally going head to head with Fortune 50 companies into their procurement departments. We have no business even being there. And sometimes we would win. All of that really sharpened the way that I could negotiate. And I learned so much then. So then I guess it was a bit unfair for me then to go to a really nice lady who's just kind of doing this as a hobby and expect her to bring the same level of discipline and same level of intensity into the negotiations as I would. So I said, forget it. I'm not putting my future in somebody else's hand. It was like a weekend class during COVID. I got my real estate agent license, and then I was able to get my own deals done. That was such a life hack, by the way. Getting my own license was so good as an investor, because I could walk into literally any house. I could speak, I took one step out of the equation. So now I'm directly negotiating with at least the other agent. So at least I know my side of the message is getting through. It's not playing the old operator game that we played when we were kids, where the message got so.
How many times I wish I was like, just let me speak to the buyer. Just let me speak to the buyer. Because especially as an investor, a lot of real estate agents out there do not understand the more creative financing aspects. Right? They're used to just homeowners. You're trying to say, whoa, would they consider a vendor take back or an agreement for sale or any of these other creative financing? They're right away, oh no, my client doesn't want that. But they never even spoke to the client. They put it forward.
If we're being honest here, and again, I'm not trying to throw shade at my friends who are in the industry, but I mean, I would consider that malpractice. I really would. If you're acting as the fiduciary of the home seller, you should be bringing them every offer. It's not your job to say, oh, they're not going to be interested in this. And here's what I found about Debbie. What I found most about that is that comes from a position of insecurity. I don't like to feel dumb. Nobody likes to feel dumb. And I can totally empathize with a new real estate agent who's maybe a little bit unsure of themselves. Maybe they're new. Maybe they're trying to build a reputation for themselves as being smart and capable. The last thing they want to do is put out to the universe that, oh, I don't know, I've never heard of a vendor take back, so I don't think they'll be interested. So the easy answer is no. That's always, isn't it? In everything we do in life, the easy answer is no. Yeah. The hard answer is to take time out of your day, connect with the home seller, admit that, hey, this isn't something I've encountered before. It doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Investigate with him and then give you an honest answer. But I know exactly what you're saying. Most people are just going to default to no because it's the easy answer.
Yeah, definitely. So cool. So you've got your portfolio. So you've done real estate investing. You decided I don't want to have other people negotiate for me. I'm better at doing it. So you've got your license now, right? So you're doing that. And now what are you now? Where has that pivoted you to go?
Well, so you know what's crazy about that? There I am, and I now have these investment properties, and it's going great, and there's all kinds of advantages to having a license, because I was able to do some really cool pre-tax contributions to my new properties with my commissions, and I was able to actually put those in to work for me. I mean, there's all kinds of neat things. But one of the interesting things I also found was all of that history I had, all of that past, the winding road, and the stress and the trauma and all this crazy, like, nutty life that I've lived, it made me an incredible real estate agent. So again, it wasn't just that I was better at negotiating on my own behalf, but when somebody, and I didn't even plan on becoming a real estate agent necessarily, I was doing it for my own purposes. But somebody, put out a good question. You say, hey, if you're that good for yourself, have you ever thought about doing it for anybody else? And I never did. So my wife and I got my license, she got hers, we teamed up. And it was great. We were kind of doing this hunter-gatherer thing where I was, going out, pounding the phones, getting listing appointments, winning these deals. So I was like the hunter, and then she was the gatherer. So I'd kind of throw the kill over the fence, and then she'd get dinner ready. So that meant doing all the paperwork, managing. She did all the intelligent work, right? I just did all the grunt work, the ooga booga stuff.
But that makes a good team. You do what you're good at, right?
Yeah, it was great. But what was amazing to me was just applying all those things that I knew from business, coming up in maybe a different kind of realm than maybe the average real estate agent came up in. We had incredible success. So the way we positioned homes, it was all about really just mastering the consumer psychology of scarcity and of demand. So the homes that our clients that we listed for, over 100%. It was actually 102.3%, if I recall, which means we were getting above asking price for our listings. That means, so what I was really good at doing was positioning the home in a way that almost always we got multiple offers. We try to incur a bidding war, right? Every time we list a home, we wanted to really make this thing scarce and desirable. So we would spike those elements of that home, however we were going to present it. And there's a number of psychological consumer psychology ways that I learned over the years to really do that. And just applying those practices in real estate was amazing. And what was really interesting is not only did they sell for more than what they were asking, we almost always, and I can think of maybe a small handful where we were under contract after the first weekend. It was like wild. Just for comparison's sake, you might say, well, everybody was doing that. The market on average was 89% list to sold price ratio, and they were taking about 81 days to sell. So, I mean, this was a massive improvement, and it was great. We loved it. But then came the last listing I ever took, and I can tell you about that. It was a really nice gentleman. He was an engineer, and what happens in this industry is there will be real estate agents that do something that we call buying the listing. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. I don't know if you're familiar with. Have you heard of that before?
I don't know, and I don't know what the Canadian rules are for those that are listening in Canada. So what you're speaking to is what happens in the U.S.
So yeah, what happens in the U.S. And I like to believe this is an isolated incident, but what I'm seeing, it's fairly common. It's basically, and it's not just in real estate. It's in. I mean, gosh, think about the last time you purchased a car. The guy who sold you the car says, "This is the greatest thing you've ever driven. It will never need work." And then 3 hours later, you're in the shop.
Yeah.
It happens in every industry, but what often happens when somebody buys a listing is they give unrealistic promises to the seller, all in the hopes that the seller's going to like them enough to use them. And so that had happened, and I did not win that listing. So on the way home in the car, and I knew, and I told him, I said, I'm not the kind of guy that's going to comfort you with a lie. I'd rather disappoint you with the truth. If you need to be told lies because you'd rather live in a fantasy world, I understand that. There are people who would like that.
But that won't sell your home.
No. You know what's so sad, Debbie, is it actually guarantees they're going to sell for less than they ever would have. Because what happens is if they say, hey, I'm going to get you 50, let's just pull a number out of the air, $50,000. So I'm going to get your home sold for $550, even though every piece of scientific evidence on the market says your home is only worth $500. I'm going to get you $550 because I belong to a special Facebook group, or I take drone videos, or I don't know, I have a rich uncle and he might want to buy your house. Whatever it is, any excuse they could come up with. So this poor soul lists with this guy above asking for. What do you think is going to happen? That home is going to
sit on the market.
Well, what happens when a home sits on the market? People start to wonder, what's wrong with it? Why hasn't it sold? So then what happens? So now you're chasing the market down. And as you chase it down, you're now competing against homes that were priced right on day one. So they're going to suffer. So now what do you have to do? You have to price below them just to get people to look at you. And it's so sad. No matter how many times I warn homeowners about this, I see them, they drink the Kool-Aid and they think, no, this home's different. I could definitely get above market. No, I'm sorry, you can't. If you could, you would have already. There'd be people knocking on your door saying, hey, can I buy your home?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that what ends up happening is they end up selling for less. The agent, though, they get free advertising in your front yard with a sign for 6 months, and they don't care if that house doesn't sell. It's free advertising to them. They're getting sign calls. They're getting leads. They're making so the dirty secret in real estate is you can still have a home that doesn't sell, but make money off of it. And you can be a success
Marketing.
by using that home as the advertising. And I have to say, I don't believe real estate agents actually do this on purpose. I think a lot of them truly believe that they can get that much money. I think there's a certain, are they delusional? Sure. I'm not going to argue that, but I'm going to stop at calling them. I don't think they're.
It could be too. They just want to do what their seller wants. So they want to please that seller. They don't want to disappoint them. They don't want the conflict. They want to look like a nice guy.
It takes, I'll tell you, it's difficult. And I've had those discussions and I've walked away from a couple where I said to the seller, I said, listen, I value everything that you've done up till this point, but you brought me in here for a reason. If you don't want my advice, I fully understand that and I can respect that, but we're probably not going to work really well together. Sometimes if I know for a fact that the seller's reasonable, it's just they then also, maybe they're answering to their wife, maybe they're answering to their daughter, maybe they have their own pressures where their daughter said, hey, Dad, I know you could get $550 for that house. If they have that discussion with me, I'll say, okay, fine. Let's start at $550. But what happens in 10 days if we don't get any offers? What do you think we should do? And I let them suggest, okay, well, at that point, we need to revisit the price and do something. But, with all that said, that was the last listing I took. And I'll tell you why, because on the way home, I had this really dark thought come into my head, which is embarrassing for me to even talk about to this day. I basically, with this, I have a beautiful life. I have a life that's so good and it's so undeserved, but yet here I am. And so I try to live every day like I have a gift because I've been given a gift. This is a blessing beyond anything anybody could ever imagine. Beautiful family, incredible life, amazing friends. But there I was on the way home, and I had this thought of, if all it takes to be successful in this business is just to lie, to tell people what they want to hear, and no, I'm hurting them in the end, but I'm still going to cash in on the back end, maybe that's what I'm going to start doing. And I really had that thought. It didn't take long, thank God, for me to come to my senses. I kind of got sick to my stomach when I realized what I was doing. The people, yeah. But I realized that it's a very heavy pull. It's a strong pull to kind of get you to go to the dark side because there's a lot to be had when you go to the dark side. There's fame and money and success and all these things that people chase after. I long ago have decided that that's not really the route that I'm interested in. I'm more interested in living a meaningful life. So that was it. I kind of said, I can't do this anymore. It's going to turn me into somebody that I wouldn't like seeing stare back at me in the mirror. So I walked. My wife was kind of upset with me, because I kind of left her in the lurch, but she's kicking butt on her own and she's incredible. She's able to kind of wade through all the morass and not get pulled to the dark side. I'm very proud of her. I'm not as good of a person as she is. So I would have been pulled over there. So I had to just separate.
You took away the temptation.
I did. I absolutely did. Yeah. If I'm on a diet, don't put me in a pizza restaurant. I'm going to eat that whole restaurant,
So Tim, you're like, I'm not going to do that anymore. So what did you decide to do?
So I had to have something because sitting around following my wife around was going to drive her crazy. My kids already think I'm immature enough, so I couldn't keep there messing with them. I was trying to figure out what I can do with the skill set that I have and do the most amount of good without ever, being tempted like that ever again. So what I decided to do was take this thing that made me a ton of money as a real estate agent, and I gave it away. I give it away for free. So I packaged everything I know and I turned it into an educational program. I have a YouTube channel, I have an Instagram channel, and I just basically give all of these tools and tactics that I use to be a very successful real estate agent and sell above market faster than the market could. And instead of just kind of keeping that as my own little secret sauce that I can make a ton of money off of, I said, forget it. It's not worth it. I'd rather give that away. And here's what really got me over that edge. I was thinking about my parents, and my parents are just the most amazing people. And they've worked so hard all of their lives. But I mean, there's limitations. College is such an expensive thing these days. And I'm just so blessed that it looks like we're going to be able to send our daughters to college because of the way that Liz and I planned. But growing up in Detroit, that was just not something a kid like me ever could have accomplished. And I think about my parents and what they've been through in their lives and how hard they've had to work and what it would mean to them. Like, let's pretend that they're going to sell their house. What would it mean to them to keep another $30,000 because they didn't have to use a real estate agent? My parents are DIY folks. They're incredibly intelligent. They're very capable, and they're retired. They have the time to explore doing this. So why shouldn't I share the knowledge that I have with people like that, with people like my parents, or a younger couple who maybe could have been my parents 30 years ago, thinking, how are we ever going to afford to send our child to college? What would that $30,000 have done for them if they were able to start a college savings plan? Could that, so it really is about taking the tools that I have and trying to do the most good I can with them because I have everything I want. I truly do.
Mm.
I don't need any more material success. I'm clearly not missing any meals. Life is beautiful. I have everything I've ever. I stumbled on this the other day, and I hope this doesn't sound egotistical because it's not meant to be, but I am who I wanted to be when I grew up. And I thought that was so cool. Like, I've done everything. I'm a pilot. I'm a sailor. I could drive giant ships. Like, all these like cool things I wanted to do as a kid: be a scuba diver, be a hunter, all this kind of stuff, be a Marine. I was able to do it. And how awesome is that? So now I'm lucky that I get to spend the back nine of my life just giving back. And hopefully I can get a note from somebody one day that says, hey, thanks to you, our kid's going to college. God, that would mean the world to me. That means more than 100 commission checks ever could. So that's what I'm doing now.
I mean, you're sharing this information with people. And you said that they'll be able to save 30,000. A lot of people out there think the only way you can sell a home is to use a real estate agent. So
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you are teaching people about how they can sell their house and keep more money in their pocket or even maybe get more for their home?
We'll begin at the beginning. How's that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of good reasons why people feel that way, and one of those big reasons is the industry spends billions of dollars a year in marketing, advertising, lobbying efforts with the government to make homeowners feel like selling their home is you're either going to mess up the pricing and leave a ton of money on the table, or you're going to screw up a legal document and end up in a lawsuit, because we see those stories all the time where a homeowner gets sued for something they didn't disclose perhaps. Or maybe it's just simply, I don't have the time and I'm not going to know how to respond to people when they try to counter negotiate. Those are the three main things that people have their lies that people have told themselves. Limiting beliefs is another way of saying it. The reality is none of those are true if you have a blueprint. If you have ever sat with somebody who's going to take you and show you, well, no, actually, there are very scientific, established ways to sell a house. It's not just guesswork. There's no magic computer program that a real estate agent goes to and then spits out a perfect number. It never happens. There's so much that goes into that. There's, as far as the contracts go, yes, sure. That would be a very foolish thing for you to try to DIY legal agreements. Never do that. But here's a newsflash: real estate agents don't do that either. They use a title company or they use a real estate attorney to vet through all the paperwork. So again, we would just tell you, do the same thing that a smart real estate agent would do: find a title company. They'll work with for sale by owners all day long.
Here in Canada, we don't have title companies. It's just it
Sure.
goes through the lawyer handles it all. So get your lawyer to prepare your documents.
Yeah.
They know exactly what those documents need to be.
For sure. And there's some states that are like that here in the US where instead of title companies, they use real estate attorneys.
Yes.
Regardless, find a legal pro, we'll just call that, and partner with them and have them walk you through that process. As far as negotiation goes, those are such simple things. There's scripts. I have a whole book of scripts that I would happily share with anybody that teaches you, hey, if they say this, say that. If they say this, say that. In reality, negotiations are not tough when you have the truth and honesty on your side. And that's what I try to tell people. Negotiations are very difficult if you're selling something that you don't believe in. Okay, so if you're selling a home that you're asking too much money for because the roof has a leak, or that the backyard floods in the summer, but you haven't told anybody, yes, you are going to stumble when you negotiate, and you rightly should. People don't.
That's your conscience.
Yes.
Conscience stopping it.
Yes, and I'll tell you something else too. When I was working for buyers, if I ever came across a house that was perfect, I was immediately suspicious because nothing is ever perfect, not even me. And I'm as close to it as you get. I'm just kidding. But it's crazy because people love honesty. In 2025, what I found more than anything, and this is true in consumer psychology, you read any consumer psychology book these days, and what people trust more is instead of a 5-star rating, people love 4.87-star ratings. People love that you're good, but if you're perfect, they know it's BS.
Their mind right away start questioning, how is that possible? What about this? What about that?
Absolutely. So that's kind of where I understand why some people believe selling by owner is scarier or unattainable. Now, let me also say, as much as I believe in the concept of selling by owner or doing as much as you feel comfortable with, there are times where it would be the dumbest thing in the world to try to do this on your own. And I know that sounds crazy coming from me because, hey, don't you kind of make money by encouraging people to sell on their own? Yes, I do. I told you, I don't care about money anymore. I'm done. What I care about is giving you like brutally honest truth, even if it might hurt your feelings. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, but I got to tell you the truth. And the truth here is if your home is subject to a judgment in a court, perhaps, maybe it's part of an estate or a will that's being contested.
Under some litigation.
Yes, a divorce. Never give that percentage, give that commission to the agent and do it with a smile on your face because they're going to earn it because they're about to go through legal hell. Okay, try to get this thing done. It is a pain. So in those circumstances, never try to do this on your own. Another circumstance I would say is if you're let's say that you're the top cardiologist, a heart surgeon in your area, and you make $30,000 every day. Well, how much sense would it make to take a week off of work to prep your house to sell it on your own? None at all. No, at that case, again, if your time cost or your money is so valuable, have somebody else do it. But this is designed more for, like I said, people who enjoy DIY projects, people who have the time. I helped a guy sell his house. I live in Cocoa Beach, Florida, this area here, and this is where NASA is located, literal rocket scientists. I had a rocket scientist hire me to sell his house. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you could so easily do this on your own. He was a retired rocket scientist. He had nothing but time on his hands, and he built rockets. And he still believed he needed to hire an agent to sell his house. So what I'm trying to say is we have to bust through that narrative. It's not necessarily true anymore. There was a time back in the 80s, and I'm sure you might remember this, where when you went to buy a house, you literally had to go to the real estate office, look through their little book of listings to find out what was for sale. Well, now that Zillow's here and all these other websites, you don't have to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. You can go directly to the consumer. And so, yes, Facebook Marketplace, neighborhood. I'll tell you, one of the best salesmen for your house is going to be your neighbors because they have a vested interest in who moves into your house.
Oh, yeah.
They have a vested interest in making sure that you sell at a good price because that keeps their values high. Yep. And they want to pick their new neighbor. They want to make sure that whoever moves in is going to be a good person. So there's a ton of, and I think that a lot of people sleep on that. They do not consider their neighbors. They don't consider their local micro influencers as allies in selling their homes. And that's one of the things I think is just incredible at moving the needle for people selling a home is they host a neighbors only. So it's exclusively for neighbors open house. So the Thursday before they hit the market, have the entire neighborhood over, have some wine, have some hors d'oeuvres, maybe a little bit of music, and just have everybody over. It does a couple of things. Number one, it allows you to meet your neighbors or reconnect with them if it's been a while, which is a beautiful thing. We should all be doing that anyway. The second thing it allows the people who know your neighborhood best and knew your house the best to give you some feedback. Hey, gosh, I noticed that you had a light bulb out in the garage. You might want to fix it. Oh my gosh, of course I do. That's such an easy fix and it makes the house look good. I noticed that you have your trash bins out sometimes after the trash guy comes. You might want to bring those in. A great call. It's not about finding like the HOA Karens, right, who are just out there trying to nitpick your house. It's about making sure that you're putting your best foot forward. Mm-hmm. And then once you have those people over, whether you know it or not, they've formed, however slight, an emotional connection to you in your house. They want to see you do well. So you're going to see them do things like tell their friends, tell their family, hey, I know you guys were talking about moving next summer. Well, there's a house going up for sale right down the street. I saw it yesterday. It's beautiful. The seller is a really nice guy. You might want to come check it out. that kind of authority, somebody vouching for you that way, can't be bought in 1,000 Facebook marketplace ads. That's a very personal attestation as to who you are as a person and how nice the house is as a product. And that's a great move for homeowners these days.
So what else? Let's break down your system on how we can go about doing that. We have to have the right legal team behind us, because that's the part that makes everybody nervous. But like you said, the realtors, they're not legal. They take their brokerage documents, and even those I find problems in it.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
those I send to my lawyer to review, especially like conditional offers and those kind of things. And then you said about marketing, there's like lots of different places that you don't have to be an agent to advertise on. And I love the more like the referral space right in your neighborhood. You could even say, bring some friends and come on over.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be amazed how many friends you didn't know you have when you advertise free food and drinks. I was like, coming. That was it. That was it. So the other thing that's very, very important here is there is a piece of consumer psychology that a lot of people overlook, and it's the concept of what I implemented here in real estate. It's called strategic underpricing. So strategic underpricing is the process where we will ask for less. We will ask for less than the value of an object. And what we see is an exponential rise in interest in that object. So in a closed economic system where there's only one buyer, one seller, and one product, there's no point to that. However, in an open economic system, such as in real estate, where you have an open market of competitive buyers for a scarce resource, which is the house, and then you have that price, by strategically underpricing the home, you're going to get an influx of interest from more parties than you necessarily would have. But here's where it gets interesting. You're never going to take that, put it a different way. Let's use real numbers. So let's say your house is worth 500. I would tell you your strategic underpricing here is to price it at 475. Most people are like, holy crap, you're going to cost me $25,000. Yes, if there were only one buyer in the world and we could only take that one offer, yes, I would. But anybody here who has children, the best way to make a toy very valuable is to give it to one child and let another child see it playing with it. They're going to be fighting over that toy. Even though that toy has been sitting in the closet for the last 6 months untouched, one kid sees another kid. Guess what? I got bad news for you, folks. You don't outgrow that. You do not outgrow that. As soon as our monkey mind sees one person with a banana, we want that darn banana. As soon as we see somebody competing for an item that we also might have a little bit of interest in, our dopamine receptors fire and they say, I want this more than that person does. And all of a sudden, logic goes out the window. All that to say, that house that's worth 500 that we priced at 475, it's going to have a bidding war on it, and it's going to drive it to 520, 525 all day long. And so by practicing strategic underpricing and by doing it right, now it has to be right. You can't just strategically underprice by $1 and expect the same amount. But by the same token, you can't strategically underprice a $500,000 house at $350,000 and expect you're going to fly, because there's a point of diminishing returns. And if I came to you and I offered you a Ferrari for $10, the first thing you'd think of is, well, it's a fake Ferrari or it's going to blow up. So there's a little bit of art to that science, but
what's the percent gap there?
So there's a couple of things at play, and it's a little bit deep for this discussion, but suffice to say, what I will always land my price on a bracket. A bracket to me is a number that's like 475, 450, 425, 400. These are $25,000 brackets. Now, the reason I do that is because by straddling the bracket, when an automated search comes up through like Zillow or Redfin or something like that, people will, if you list at 500,000, people that are searching between 475 and 500 and 500 and 525 are going to see you, because that's how the search parameters are set up. They're in $25,000 increments. So some people get clever. Like me, they watch too many late night television commercials where they price everything at $19.95, and that's called charm pricing. Charm pricing works, by the way. It does work computer information products, you'll see sevens. And why? Because $9.97 feels like $9 more than it feels like $10. I can't explain why, but it does, and the numbers show it. However, here's where it breaks down in real estate. In real estate, almost 100% of the home searches are now done on computer. So if you have a recurring automated search coming and you price your home at $499, $999, thinking you're being cute, well, yes, to human eyeballs, that looks like a value. To a computer who has a guy searching between 500 and 525, you don't exist. You're invisible. And don't you think that your home, if it's really worth $500,000, don't you think the person who's searching between 520 or 500 and 525, they're going to want to see it? So it's a long way of saying I don't just
price on those borderlines.
Price on those brackets, and then it's just the first bracket down.
It may be inclusive into two brackets.
Amen.
It's the end of the lower bracket and the bottom of the higher bracket.
Exactly. What you're basically doing is you're doubling the eyeballs you're getting on your listing for absolutely zero cost. So by pricing on the bracket, I call it straddling the bracket, you're now doubling your exposure. And what you're also doing, though, is we're strategically underpriced by the max bracket down. So if it's a house that's worth $525,000, I would say start at 500 and then go from there. Now, here's the other thing about pricing that you have to understand. It's not set in stone. There are times where, and it's rare, it's happened, where I've been wrong about a price after consulting with the owner. We've agreed on a price, we hit the market, and crickets, nothing happened. So this can happen where you're in an area without comps. If you're in a very rural area and there's really no surrounding homes to compare yourself with, it can get very difficult. So what I always tell people is this is our best scientific guess. We should have every expectation that this is right. However, the real master here is the market. Because you know who gets to decide the price of a home? It's not me. It's not the seller. It's the
buyer. It's the buyer's market.
So they're the ultimate arbiter. So if we come out there, we put our best foot forward and nobody wants to dance with us, we need to make ourselves more attractive. So we go ahead and we'll do price adjustments. Again, that's very rare that we have to do that. If you do your homework and you know your market, and most homeowners know their market really well, it's almost never going to happen. But I always will qualify that and say, be flexible. If you put your product out there and nobody's buying, there's a reason for it. And it's almost 99.9% of the time price. Because even if the house looks terrible, the photos are garbage, and you wrote the listing description in crayon, I guarantee you, if I lower the price enough, somebody's going to call on it. So it's always price.
What's the next factor that we need to consider?
So then we get into the negotiations, the closings. And one of the things that another little hack that I like to give home sellers and investors, and here's why investors, I think, probably should care more about this almost than a home seller, is because I know when I'm investing, everything I do is numbers based. You know, when I've sold personal homes, there's been some emotion that went into it. And there's been, when I'm looking at an investment, I'm very agnostic. I don't see my kid taking a step down that hallway. I see how much cash on cash return I'm getting for this asset. So when I look at selling an investment property, to me, it's all numbers. And so things like increasing my ROI by maybe putting in some more sweat equity on the front end, where I might arrange for the photos to be taken. I go create that relationship with my real estate attorney. I go out and I place some of the ads and I answer the frontline questions from buyer's agents who are interested in buying. That to me as an investor is hyper valuable because I'm able to control the narrative that's going out about this home. And I'm also doing it, saving a ton of extra money that would have otherwise gone to somebody else. And again, as an investor, who knows more about this asset than me? I'm the one that did all the homework on it. I'm the one that tore the house down to the studs and rebuilt it. You know, I know everything there is to know about that home. So when it comes to real estate investors and homeowners, whoever owns this asset, being really strong in the product that you're putting out is going to be super important. Before you list your home, I recommend doing something called a pre-listing inspection. And this is where you almost pretend like you're the buyer for this house that you're selling. You hire a home inspector and you have them do a home inspection on this house. And a lot of people will say, but Tim, why in the heck would you waste $500 when you know somebody's going to come do a home inspection anyway when they put an offer to purchase it? Well, the reason is I want to know what's wrong so I have the opportunity to either fix it on my terms or be prepared to speak on it when it comes time to negotiation. There's Man, do you remember getting, I don't know, I have to admit, I was sometimes a bad kid growing up. And, I remember having to come up with a lie at the last minute to explain why I was coming home late. I mean, it was just awful. How much nicer it was when there was an actual true story. My God, we literally had a flat tire. Here's the receipt from the towing company. I'm so sorry, mom and dad. It was so much easier to plead my case than to say, oh, there was an apartment that caught fire. There was kittens on the top floor. I had to climb the building to save the kittens. And oh man, I got my arm singed. Yeah, ridiculous. Anyway, when you're selling a house, you want to be able to have a great source of truth to operate from. What I love doing is getting the pre-listing inspection and dividing the listing results into three buckets. Number one is safety and code violations. If the inspector went up into your attic and they saw a live electrical wire sparking, bouncing off the insulation, yeah, we need to get that fixed. You should never want to sell a dangerous house to anybody. So we fix those, no questions asked. The second bucket that we look at are things like cosmetic issues or issues that a handyman can fix, not necessarily a licensed contractor, but if a wall is scuffed up and it needs a new coat of paint, if maybe the door slammed open into a wall and left a hole in the drywall, we need to patch that. If there's a light switch that doesn't operate anything, we need to, cover that up. Whatever it is, those kind of issues, I recommend you fix because it's just going to make your home look very cared for. And that does matter to people. Now, the third option is where it gets a bit subjective. The third option is what I call kind of nice to have. And these are things that they're functional, but maybe they're ugly. So maybe it's a 17-year-old air conditioning system. Maybe it's a water heater that's starting to show a little bit of rust on the outside, or old kitchen appliances, right? These are things that you don't have to fix, but if they're brought up during part of the negotiation process and you have a great buyer who's just amazing, they've given you above asking, and you really want to get this deal done and it still makes sense to you, what I often suggest is offering a credit at close for the seller to go ahead and upgrade these things at their leisure. And the reason I say that is because, number one, if you're the seller, you're not really looking to hire the best quality contractor to come replace your air conditioning. You want the lowest bidder. So it doesn't serve the buyer well to have just a piece of crap air conditioner in the new house they bought.
Yeah, or same thing with the appliances. You might just
Yes.
go on Facebook Marketplace and buy some appliances that look nice.
And have your handyman put them in while he's at it. So so there's that's kind of the third bucket. And what I do then is I then would have the inspect after all these repairs are done that you're going to do, have the inspector come out, re-inspect, give you the current bill of health that you're at. Then when you are figuring out which offer you want to accept, you absolutely should include that inspection report as part of your collateral. Because, and here's why, there's something in human psychology that causes you to, it's called cognitive dissonance. And the human mind has a very difficult time reconciling current lies against past truths. Let me give you a practical example because I know that sounds complicated. So what that necessarily means is if I give you the complete Bible to this house and you look at it and yes, the third floor ceiling fan wobbles, and the inspection report says that the water coming out of the basement faucet is a little bit slow. Okay, fine. When you come back to me in the due diligence period and you try to use your inspection report to negotiate a lower price, I, as a smart seller, I'm going to simply ask, well, I understand that, Mr. Buyer. Remember when you saw that on the initial inspection?
I gave you.
And you still put in the offer? What's changed? And you just don't, and then you shut up. Don't say a word. When you're negotiating, silence is your best weapon in the world. Because if you're quiet long enough, and you got to let it get awkward. I mean, you have to let this get first kiss at prom night awkward. I mean, it has to be awkward, okay? And you have to be like, let that silence sit with them. Because that right now, their brain is fighting an internal war with itself. Do I be honest or do I say what I want? Do I be honest or do I say what I want? And 9 out of 10 times, they're going to be honest. They're going to say, yeah, I know. We're just, as you can expect, I'm trying to negotiate a better deal, but I get it. I understand. And that's okay. But again, that's such a huge feather in your cap for having that trick. It's a trick up your sleeve, right? To be able to have that and be fully transparent, because not only are you showing the buyer that, hey, I've got nothing to hide, you're also taking away their greatest weapon, which is, I didn't know.
I love it because when you already have that inspection report and you fix things, it means that there's nothing for them to come back and negotiate on.
Absolutely.
And when you open that door to negotiation, because this is wrong and that is wrong, then it can definitely get hairy. But if address the elephant in the room right at the beginning,
Call it out.
you can either fix things or you already know there's issues and you can say, yes, I know this. I'm presenting it to you. It's included in the price.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We took the current condition of this home into consideration when we priced it.
Yeah.
And you know, if you do things my way, you would have had a conversation with them ahead of time where you say, listen, there's been multiple offers on this house. We're trying to select the best one. You are kind of at the top of the list. Are you sure that you're comfortable with everything that you've seen so far? And do you see any reason of you not going through with this? They're going to say no. They want this house. They've had to fight 6 other people to buy this house. So they're going to put their best foot forward. Having that conversation then, and then referring back to that conversation during negotiation and say, well, gee, I'm just kind of confused. I handed you that inspection report. You said there was nothing wrong, and now you're saying there is. What changed? And it's magic.
We're running out of time, but is there one last tip? Is there anything around the way that you should list it, something you should say in the listing, or maybe the way you present it that also would tip the scales?
Absolutely. So one of the best tips I could give people around the listing itself, always work with a professional photographer. I don't care how many Instagram followers you have. You cannot take photos as good as a real estate. They understand composition. They understand what sells. Work with a pro when it comes to photography. Work with a pro when it comes to legal stuff. Work with a pro when it comes to complex repairs where contractors involved. Beyond that, you and I could talk about DIY and most of the other stuff. So the other thing is the actual listing description itself. There's an old saying that say facts tell, but stories sell. And that's true in real estate. If you just lay out a very robotic vomiting of the features of a house and you say, yes, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch with 1 acre, people are going to, you got to realize we're in 2025. People have the attention span of a gnat. Okay. So they're going to flick right past you unless you hook them. And one of the best ways to hook people is with an incredible story. So using narrative-based or story-based listing descriptions is a great way to do that. So instead of 3-bed, 2-bath, you're saying, imagine the sun streaming in on a spring morning through the full ceiling to floor windows as you sip your coffee, overlooking the city park. Wow, wait, what? What is that? That is something that's going to get people to pay attention. Yeah, you're going to get to the part where you talk about the different bedrooms and baths and how much space you have, but that's not what you lead with. You lead with a story. You want them to temporarily step out of their existence and paint themselves into yours. And by doing that, you're going to find that you're going to grow an affinity for your home that a robotic listing description just doesn't have. And I've got tools for that as well that help people with that. And really what is most important here is you want to talk about this home as if you were explaining it to a child who's never seen it before. So, and how do children learn best? Through stories. They learn best through stories. So being able to tell a story about your house is going to do more for you than just a robotic listing description. Having great photos, that's going to stop the scroll. That's very important.
Virtual walkthroughs, is that something you recommend?
Huge. I love those. Yes, I absolutely love those. They're well worth the cost. And giving somebody the ability to do a 3D tour of your home is just anything you can do to give them more touch points into your home. Because after all, you have to realize you're selling a product here. So you have to almost imagine yourself as somebody selling a car or a pair of shoes or whatever. The more touch points, the more affinity that you can create between the consumer and this product, the more likely it is that they're going to want to go out and buy.
Great. Tim, you mentioned that you had a free giveaway. Can you tell us a little about what you're offering the audience and how they can get it?
So the first thing I'm going to offer is clarity. And what I mean by that is I have a quiz, and it's if you go to my website, which is Foolproof FSBO. FSBO is FSBO, which means for sale by owner. Some people are familiar with that terminology, other people aren't. So I made this thing foolproof so you can't screw it up. So it's foolprooffsbo.com/quiz. So if you go to foolprooffsbo.com/quiz, you're going to find a very simple 2-minute quiz. It's actually going to test your aptitude, whether or not you're a suitable candidate to sell by owner, or like I said before, maybe it's the dumbest idea ever. And we're still going to help you. We're just going to walk you down a different path. The other thing I would love to give your audience is my launch checklist. It's a 7-day launch checklist. You can find that at, again, my website, foolproofismo.com/ebook. And that's going to give those they know they're interested and they just want to see what it's going to look like. It's a 7-day launch system that gets you from zero all the way to having your home listed in 7 days and ready for buyers. So that's there for them as well. And by all means, there might be even some people out there that would just want to have a one-on-one call with me. They could do that as well. It's foolproofismo.com/booking. So I would love to offer any of those 3 things to your audience. And if we can help with anything, we would love to. You've been great, Debbie, and we just love you over here. And we're really excited to get here and spend some time with you.
Excellent. So thank you so much, Tim. Your passion comes through big time.
I'll tell you, you're right. I've been blessed. One of the ways that I've really kind of measured my life is I lost 6 of my guys in the Marines, 6 friends. And I often will find myself asking when I get to see them again and when I get to talk to them, what are they going to say about the life I led? Are they going to say that, hey, your life was worth the sacrifice? Or are they going to say, boy, I don't know why I died for you, buddy. You haven't done much with your life. I live every day like I'm going to have to answer for that. And so to the extent that I can do that, and to the extent that all of you, I guarantee everybody here has lost somebody that's important to them, and people have sacrificed for them. And it's just important that you know that you're going to have to answer for everything one day. And hopefully you can take this as an opportunity to kind of reassess where you are and decide, hey, it's time for me to do something different, better. And I hope it works out for you like it has for me.
Thank you so much, Tim. For real estate investors out there, this is such great tips, because for some of those, especially those just starting out, they want to keep more money in their pocket. That money saved can then go into investing in another property. This would really help. However, if you are, like Tim says, if you're in a situation where your real estate investing or your job creates more money than paying that realtor to do the work for you, then, you have to weigh it up. It's not how much you pay, it's how much you make. So great tips. So much great stuff, Tim. Really appreciate you being here. And for everyone out there, if you enjoyed this podcast, please hit that like button and subscribe so that you can get notified when we have more of these podcasts that are being published. So thanks, everyone. And for now, Tim and Debbie out.
Bye-bye.